All right. Hey guys, it's Kevin again. And yes, I told you guys that this was going to happen. I am, of course, here to review the season premiere of Euphoria, season 2, episode 1. Not a New Line Cinema show, despite what some people may say, is not affiliated with New Line Cinema whatsoever, but it is called Trying to Get to Heaven Before They Close the Door. But I'm also happy to say that I am not alone for this review. I was able to get a guest on with me, someone that would be a great disservice to not have him on, considering how much he has raved about the show. I was literally going to do this by myself, and then I thought, fuck, I'm going to be such a bad friend if I don't let this person on, because he is just constantly tweeting about how excited he is for the show, and I don't know many people who love this show as much as he does. So here he is, the clown himself, Henry Ewing.
What's up?
What's up? It's very, very good to have you on here. So before we get into this season premiere, just give us a general thoughts on like how you feel about Euphoria overall and things like that, season 1, and then your anticipation level like for this season.
Yeah, Euphoria is like a great ass show. Like it
Oh, yeah.
instantly became like one of my favorites. Like after like the first season, like I could not stop watching it. Like once I started, and then it was like ready to start season 2. Like a few months later, and then Hell World happened, and
Yep.
it, much later than expected. So
Yeah. Literally almost.
But we did
like
get the
3 years.
special
It's crazy.
episodes.
Yeah, true. And I mean, Euphoria is probably one of the most like unique cases, I feel like, for shows that have like taken a while to come out, because not only did they get like, you know, super delayed because of COVID, they literally were like seconds, like days away from shooting. Like they had the script ready. That was back when Kelvin Harrison Jr., I remember, was like on board. So like he was going to be in the cast, and now he's not, which is very unfortunate because I was very excited to see what he was going to do here. But you know, maybe some point they'll give him like some other role. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy what this season just has been through. The fact that we got those like 2 special episodes out of the show that weren't even supposed to exist to like tide us over. They did a good job in tiding us over until this premiere. But I think, you know, similar to you, I mean, I was very much excited to see how this season was going to play out. The way they left things off in season 1, I really was unsure where we were headed in season 2. I kind of expected us to be down a more road of recovery, and I do think we're still going to get there. But my God, is it going to take a lot, because this was a very, very dark premiere. There's a lot going on in this premiere for sure. But I was very pleased with how this turned out. I thought this was definitely one of the most intense episodes of the show yet. I thought it really did a good job of really just kind of showing how like almost every single character is kind of down spiraling in that way. And I don't know what we're in for this season, but we are in for a hell of a ride for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that we're going to talk about, because, you know, every episode starts off, and this is something I've always loved about the show, these little, like, vignettes we get of every single character. I enjoyed that a lot in season 1. But I will say the thing I really liked about this episode is that I feel like the vignette here was utilized probably the best yet, because a lot of the time when they did it, it didn't really connect to the episode. Like, for example, we get a 10-minute thing about Maddie and like why Maddie, you know, acts the way she does, like within her relationship with Nate and things like that. And sure, that gave us a lot of context, but the episode wasn't really about Maddie. Or we get something about Cassie and sort of like her like traumatic child and things like that. But the episode isn't really about her. This was very much about Fesco. Like this was his episode. He was the star of this episode. I would go as far as to say that, because he really had a lot going on. And I mean, he gave us some of the biggest like bruh moments in this show yet. I really liked what we end up getting with him. But getting into his sort of like story here, I think this is probably one of the best the show has done. I really like getting to see like his grandma and sort of the relationship that he formed with her, where like she herself was sort of like this gangster of sorts, and she was down this very
motherfucking G.
Yes, she was a motherfucking G, as Rue does say. And Catherine Narducky as well. I was not expecting to see her in this show, but I thought it was really cool they were able to get her on here. But she, of course, is Fesco's grandmother. Like I said, she's involved in like this life of crime of sorts, and eventually he's pulled into it. And what I thought they did a really good job here is not just giving us context into why Fesco leads this life because he cares so much about his grandmother, and really just kind of underscores like how overprotective Fesco is of people. I've said this before, like I feel like it's both a strength and a weakness for him, and I think we see like both sides of that in this episode, where he very much is doing this just to follow his grandmother's legacy, kind of step into her shoes while she's down for the count. She's in a coma from what we know. I don't know if she's going to wake up at any point, but it also gives us context into his relationship with Ashtray, which this is not something I talked a lot about in season one, because while it was a part of season one, it's a lot more integral this season already. We're focusing a lot more on just his relationship with Ashtray, how Ashtray really is like this brother to him. Fesco is really like the only family he's ever had in that way, and I just really liked what we ended up getting here. What did you think of this this whole thing we got about Fesco?
Yeah, I think that it was really good, like seeing like where he comes from and all of that. And another thing is that like the ones in like the first season were really fast paced.
Yeah, this one was long.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this one like slow, but like it takes its time for sure.
Yeah, no, I was surprised, like, because, like, as it was going by, I'm like, oh my God, we're already 12 minutes into the episode. Like, it was a very lengthy one, but I think it needed to be because there was a lot of context. Because, like, Fesco was a big character in season one, but not to the extent that we get here. He was very much like, we know that he is a drug dealer. We know that Rue is someone that goes to him, like, when she needs drugs and things like that, but he doesn't really want to do that for her because he's always looking out for her best interests, and he doesn't want her to, like, down spiral and things like that, but she just can't resist, and they have this very interesting sort of relationship. But here we really get to see like who he really is and where he comes from, and I really like getting to see that. And there were so many things that I thought were so narratively satisfying. Like I love how in the beginning of the episode, you know, when people are first seeing Fesco and him working for his grandma, they're like, why are you having this child, you know, do your bidding? And she's like, he's not my you know, this isn't a child, he's my business partner. Fesco says the same thing about Ashtray when they're in that whole, like, you know, crazy deal that's going on. I thought that was just that was such a good parallel. I thought that was such great storytelling the way they did that. You really do see how Fesco is, like I said, following in his grandmother's footsteps. And I think it gives a lot more context into, you know, why he really does the things he does, why he is this drug dealer in that way. He doesn't necessarily want to do it, but he kind of feels like he has to because he is such a like family man in that way. And I really like getting to see that. And hell yes, Cody, definitely Team Fesco, especially after this episode. He is without a doubt one of my favorite characters in the show now. So we go from that, and then we find out very early on that Mouse was in fact murdered. They killed him. They didn't like the way that he was doing things.
Yeah, that just like came out of nowhere. Like,
yeah, I was not expecting for him to die. Like
I was expecting him to be like a big part of like this season, and then it's like nope, he's just dead.
Yeah, I don't know if it's one of those things where like they couldn't get the actor because of COVID or something like that, but yeah, Mouse is gone. But I thought it made sense with what Fesco said, that like he didn't really like the way that he was running things. He didn't like the way, you know, he was kind of like ruining his business and things like that. So he just didn't really want Mouse to be involved. But again, yeah, I mean, such a crazy, like unceremonious killing. The way they cut from like, you know, his grandmother going into a coma, and then all of a sudden you see Ashtray freaking out. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And turns out that's what it was. So I thought that was very interesting. We then get another very lengthy sequence, but a very effective one for sure. We see Fesco and Ashtray, they're pulling off some sort of deal. Rue is like high as shit in the car. And I mean, Zendaya, I'm sure we've said it before, but like she was just amazing in this scene just because, again, you can tell just from the first few seconds how off her rocker Rue really is here. I mean, she does not give a shit. She's not not taking this seriously at all. She's like joking around. And you can see that it's like really pissing Fesco off. So it's already really getting to a point where she's very like self-destructive in that way. And I think it's very interesting to watch because trouble don't always last, kind of hinted at maybe her recovering, but I think we're already seeing that like, you know, Rue doesn't really want to do that because it's just too hard for her. And I think we're seeing that like she's just continuing to backslide into drugs and things like that. And even when she sees like that one woman who was doing heroin and it like really freaked her out, she still is like kind of like enticed by it. So I don't really know where that's headed, Henry, but it's definitely not going to be it's not going to be great for Rue, I think. Yeah. She's very much backsliding, but like I said, we pull off this deal. It's this crazy thing where they go into this teacher's house, but this teacher has some guy, and this guy is like very intimidating. He assumes they're all wearing wires. He tells all of them to take their clothes off. Rue is like hesitant in doing so at first, to the point where he literally takes her to the shower and like forces her to like take her clothes off. What a suspenseful sequence.
Very
I didn't know what the
shit.
hell. Yeah, I didn't know what the hell was going to go down there with the way that whole thing turned out. So I was like, is someone going to get shot? Like, I didn't know what was going to happen, but it was a really good way, again, of just showing the darkness of what Fesco is really doing, what he's getting himself involved in, you know. And then at the end where, you know, the teacher's like, sorry for all the trouble, we're just making sure. I'm like, oh, now you say that. Like, it was just such an intense sequence to watch. You were so on edge with all these characters, even ones you didn't know, like even the girl that is like, you know, clearly just stoned as fuck the entire time. I still felt for her. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to her? Like, and I think that's something they did such a great job with, just really ratcheting up the tension in this sequence. Really great stuff there. But you know, we get this whole thing done. They're able to get the drugs, and the rest of the episode is at this party. And I think you agree with me, Henry. The second we saw there was a party, we knew something was going to go down. Like, yeah. We knew that this episode was not going to end on a very, it was definitely going to end on a very eventful note. And my God, did it ever. I think the first thing we're going to talk about, since we're talking about Rue, you know, we'll get to what Rue really does go through here. Rue throughout the rest of this episode is kind of in this state where you can tell that she is very depressed. She feels very isolated. She doesn't really know who to interact with at this point. She ends up coming across this character, Elliot. And Elliot, he himself is, you know, frequenting in drugs and things like that. And it doesn't really seem like he wants her to get involved with it either. What do you think about this character so far of Elliot?
It seems like a good match to Rue, and
yeah,
we'll see where they go.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he's going to be someone that's very interesting, especially with Rue and Jules seemingly back together. I think this is really going to complicate that dynamic in a very interesting way, because Rue nearly has a heart attack over whatever he gave her. I don't know what she ended up, you know, having, but whatever combination of drugs that she's on, she nearly goes into cardiac arrest, and she kind of just like laughs it off. But like, you know, it's crazy that you can see how much he's concerned for her in that way. So on one hand, like, this is a guy that truly does care about her and sees that like she needs to be very careful with, you know, what she's really doing. But on the other hand, I mean, he's just as involved in drugs as she is, and I don't see him leading her down a very positive path. So I'm not really sure where Elliot's going to go as a character, but I'm very intrigued by him. It seems like from the trailer, like I said, he's really going to kind of like complicate things between her and Jules, which, getting into that, was not expecting them to go in the direction they did with Jules as a character here, because we focused mostly at first on Jules and her kind of repairing her and Kat's friendship. I don't think that's something we touched upon a lot in season 1, but it seems like they've kind of like fallen out and she's trying to do what she can to repair it. Not a lot going on with Kat. It seems like she's just kind of happy with, you know, she's she's kind of happy with Ethan. We'll see if that lasts, though, because characters are not happy on the show for very long. So I'm not sure if that's going to last for Kat, but I'm happy that she's in a better place this season. Like, last season was very stressful for her with everything that she was going through. So I'm happy to see that, like, Ethan's a guy that seems to support her. It seems like she's in a good relationship. How do you feel about this? Do you think that Kat's going to be in a good place this season, or do you think there's going to be, some shit going down?
I think that there might be some stuff between Kat and Ethan.
Yeah.
We'll see. Like, I think we might get an Ethan episode this season.
Yeah, I could see that. Because, like, they've gone through almost every character, so now they got to go through, like, the newer ones.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm hoping we get that, too, because Austin Abrams is a main character this season. I don't know if we touched upon that before, but he is a main character. So I'm excited to see what they end up doing with that whole relationship. But not a lot going on with Kat in this episode at all. What we mainly get is eventually Rue and Jules. Jules does want to find Rue. Rue does confess that she has relapsed in that way. And you can see that Jules is like very concerned about that. But they do still decide to get back together. And I don't think this is a good thing at all, Henry. Like, we already know from the standalone Jules episode that, like, Rue is someone that Jules wants to be with, but she doesn't really know how to be with her when she's constantly in drugs. Like, she feels like she is a drug to Rue. She doesn't really feel like their relationship is a very healthy one. Yeah. But it makes sense why she's going back to Rue. Obviously, they have that connection, but I don't think this is going to end well between these two at all. And it kind of sucks because, like, I do think there is a point where these two can eventually get together, but where they are in their current state, I do not think they can coexist. And I don't see this working out for either of them. So, yeah, I expect some really explosive stuff going on within that relationship, especially, like I said, with Elliot in the mix. I think things are going to get really complicated there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's everything we really get with Rue. Now, the story I really want to talk about is what we get with Cassie in this episode, which, my God, Sydney Sweeney, this was probably her best episode yet, like, easily. I think her acting was just incredible in this episode, especially because a lot of it was wordless, and you can tell exactly what Cassie was feeling. So obviously a lot of these characters are very affected by the events of season 1, but I don't think anyone has been affected as hard as Cassie really has. I mean, she really is at a point where she is just down spiraling to the point of she's now interacting with Nate. And the second that her and Nate interacted, I'm like, oh no, this is not going to be good. I don't know what's going to happen, but this is not going to be good. He corners her, seems like he's trying to flirt with her. She doesn't seem into it at first, and then she gets a bit intoxicated, ends up spilling wine on her underwear, ends up taking it off, and well, you can pretty much guess what happens from there. And it happens at the worst possible time, because who's the one banging on the door, wanting to go to the bathroom? None other than Maddie herself. And the second that happened, I didn't know what was going to happen to Cassie in that scenario. I didn't know if she was going to be able to get out of that. But yeah, that whole scene was crazy. When you can see that she's freaking out and she's immediately regretting what she did. She's like, why did I do this? This is not something that should happen. The one thing I'm a bit confused about, correct me if I'm wrong, Henry, because you've rewatched the show a bunch of times. Did we see the fight between Lexi and Cassie? Because she talks about how, like, they had some kind of fallouts and, like, Cassie ended up leaving her. Do we know what that's about?
I don't think so, no. I think that it happened, like, right before, so no, we didn't see that.
Okay, yeah, because I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't think I remember these two, like, fighting, but maybe they did. So yeah, I just wanted to get that clarification there. But yeah, Lexi's like trying to call her throughout this entire episode, not knowing what's going on with her. Meanwhile, like I said, you got Cassie, who is just in the midst of like a complete just nervous breakdown at this point. Like, she is just freaking out about everything. Throughout the rest of this episode, she's like hiding in a bathtub, which makes for some funny moments, like when the guy's coming in and he's like, you're hot, but I'm still gonna take a shit in front of you. I was like, oh my God. And things like that. But then you also have Maddie meeting up with this other guy, and Travis. yeah, Travis, I don't know if he's going to play a major role moving forward, but I don't mind him. Like, I don't mind him as a character. It seems like Maddie enjoys the fact that, like, he likes her and things like that. So I don't know if we're going to see more of him, but, you know, anything that can happen to get her away from Nate, I think is a good thing. So, yeah, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with Maddie. It does seem like she still has those feelings for Nate. I mean, when what happens to him at the end of this episode happens, she's immediately the one to like run to him and things like that. So I don't think she's over him in the slightest. And I think we're definitely going to see some kind of recoupling there. But yeah, I mean, drama. Yeah, this is not going to end well for Cassie at all. You know, her breaking the girl code, as many have said, you know, that's something that is really bad. But also the fact that, you know, this is like the last thing that Cassie wanted to do. I don't think she wanted to hook up with Nate. I don't think she wanted this to happen, but yet she did it. And she feels so like regretful. But I don't think, you know, Sydney Sweeney has teased that Cassie's going to go down a really dark path this season. And I don't think this is even half of what we're going to see. So I can't even imagine what's about to happen to her. But I guess the only other thing to really talk about is we do get one scene with McKay, which this is my only flaw with this premiere, is that I read a bunch of reviews say that this is McKay's only episode this season. He doesn't show up after this. And that's disappointing to me, because my only flaw with season 1 is that I didn't feel McKay was like that developed a character. We don't really know a ton about him. And I thought that this season we could have gotten a bit more of an opportunity to dive deeper into this guy. But all we really get is he tries to talk to Cassie, wants to try to like fix things with her, because obviously, you know, the last time they talked, it didn't really end well. And then realizes that she probably had sex with someone else, because she says, why am I such a terrible person? And he kind of reads between the lines. How'd you feel about this scene with McKay?
Yeah, like I heard like similar things. Like I heard, like I kind of do wish that they would do more with him this season, but I don't know, wasn't like the best way to go out, I'll say.
No, I definitely hope we get at least something more from him. I hope what I read was just like an exaggeration and maybe he's in the show more. But I'm also reading these headlines where people were unsure if Algee Smith was even going to be in this season. So like, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know. I mean, Algee Smith does have a very busy like movie career and things like that. So like, I understand. But at the same time, I feel like this to me was like the one character that wasn't fully developed last season, and they had an opportunity to like, well, besides Lexi, obviously, Lexi wasn't fully developed either. But they're already doing a better job with that this season. McKay is like the one character that I really took issue with in season 1, where I'm like, I just want to know more about this guy. And they didn't really do much with him at all here. Like, we have this scene where he goes to Cassie. Nate is like at his absolute worst in this episode. Like, this is like probably the most like aggravating he's ever been. The entire episode, you are waiting for what happens to him to happen to him, because he is just being such a piece of shit to everyone. Like, when he's getting in McKay's face and he's like, I know you had sex with her, I know you did this. I'm like, why are you doing like what are you doing here? Like, he was like straight up taunting him. Yeah, so that's really all we get with Cassie. Like I said, there's no way this is going to end well at all. Lexi can also tell that something's off. So I'm interested in seeing, you know, what really went on between these two. What was the argument that they had? Because clearly Lexi is like really adamant about, I gotta talk to Cassie, I gotta reach out to her, I gotta make sure she's okay. So I'm not really sure what's gonna happen there, but I can't imagine that Cassie's going down a very healthy route this season. I think definitely this is gonna be very rough for her. But like I said, Sydney Sweeney, absolutely one of the MVPs of this episode. The scene where she's like in the bathtub and you can see, you know, she can hear Maddie and Travis, and you can just see the regret on her face, but also just how utterly terrified she is of what's about to happen. It's just so good for her character, because this is a character that we know has frequented in a lot of sexual escapades before. This is something that comforts her. She talked about in season 1. And so now for it to be with someone like Nate, and it to be to her best friend, who, you know, is so supportive towards her in this episode, obviously not knowing what she did, but like just being so supportive towards her, being that great friend. You can really see how this is going to wreck their relationship. And it's going to be really heartbreaking whenever Maddie does find out, but I'm very interested in seeing how that's all going to play out. Obviously, anything else you want to say in regards to the Cassie storyline?
Towels.
Yes, a lot of things happened with towels. That was that is not something you want to think about in the bathtub.
Yeah.
No. Like the second she did that, I'm like, okay, I know exactly what's going to happen here, and I feel so bad for Cassie that's about to happen. Let's talk about maybe the most unexpected storyline this episode, but possibly my favorite, what we end up getting with Lexi and Fesco. I love this. I really love this a lot because as I said before, I did not have an issue in season 1 with Lexi being a slightly underused character, because the difference with Lexi and McKay, and I mentioned this in my season 1 review, and I don't know if you agree, but I didn't have an issue with Lexi because Lexi wasn't a major part of season 1. She wasn't as involved in a lot of the storylines. She was there, and we know enough about her, but she wasn't really that involved. McKay, I took issue with because he was very involved in a lot of things that were going on, and we just didn't dive enough into him. This season, it seems like Lexi is a lot more involved, and I like that. I like that we're getting a lot more insight into her. I think we've always gotten the sense that Lexi is a little bit more, studious than a lot of her fellow classmates. She isn't as trashy and things like that. She doesn't like to partake in all of these crazy parties. She is a lot more, she's just a lot more independent in that way. She's very different from everyone else. And we really do get to see that here when we see this different side of Fesco where he reaches out to her. They start talking about like religion and about how he's involved with a gang, and does that conflict with like his religious beliefs? What do you think of this whole interaction? Because like I thought it was really unexpected, but really good stuff.
Yeah, like there was interesting seeing those two, because like I know they're like fan favorites and stuff.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where that leads, and sorry Rexy shippers, I guess.
Yeah, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. I don't think it ever was, but it's definitely not a thing now. But honestly, it makes a lot of sense, I think, for these two to come together because of the fact that like these are the two people that care about Rue the most. They want her to get out of this situation. They don't want her to down spiral. Like it makes sense for these two to come together in that way. And I think it's really going to bring out the best in Lexi's character, especially. I'm very excited to see more of what we get with her. Fesco talks about how like, she's like someone that he's never met before. He seems really interested in her. He gets her number at the end. We see in the trailer that it seems like these two are going to interact a lot more. So I'm very excited to see what we get with these two moving forward. I think that they're going to be a big highlight of this season. I know people are talking about the fact that like Fesco is a little bit older than Lexi and things like that. But I mean, these characters are always doing like crazy shit. Like, why are we surprised that there's so many other things going on? Like, I don't think that's something to really complain about. Like, these characters are involved in like wild parties and all this shit. Like it's not something I think to really worry about. I'm very excited to see what they do with these two moving forward. I think it's going to be one of the best parts of the season overall. And I really enjoyed the conversation we get between these two, but obviously we got to talk about the way this does wrap up because we get to a point where after Nate has this conversation with McKay and Fesco has this conversation with Lexi, they both go off and, the last time, and I said this in season 1, this was a dumb prediction of mine. I don't know why I thought this, Henry, but I said at the end of season 1 that I thought Fesco was going to die. I did say that. And it turns out it's not a bad prediction because they said originally that was the plan, that they were going to kill him off in season 1. Because, when he goes to Nate and he corners him and he's like, I'm going to kill you and things like that. I thought that wasn't going to end up well for him. I thought that he was going to end up being the one to die, but I should have known that Fesco would come on top in that way because he goes to Nate. Nate talks to him kind of just like makes fun of the fact that he like low-key threatened him. And you know, Fesco's like not having it. At first he like, you know, cheers with him, but then he just throws the bottle in his face, starts punching him repeatedly, and does the thing I think we've all wanted to happen to Nate. Like Nate is put through the fucking ringer here and deserves every bit of what's coming in, especially this episode. He was being such an asshole. Like he absolutely deserved the beating that he got in this episode. And you can see how everyone's reacting to this. Obviously, I think this is going to have dangerous repercussions on Fesco's character. Now, we know what Nate is involved with. We know what his father's involved with. So I can't imagine this is going to go well, but I'm very excited to see, because there already was history between these two, but even more so now. I don't really know what's going to happen here when it comes to this Fesco and Nate story. Like, where do you think this is really headed?
Like, I feel like Nate's dad's gonna maybe do some dangerous shit.
Oh yeah. And we don't even know the full extent of what he's doing. Like, that's the thing. Like, we still don't know. We know there's like some shit. He's probably like a pedophile of sorts, but we don't know exactly what his dad's involved in. So like, that is especially scary to think about.
Yeah.
And we see like in the promo for like next week's episode, like Nate does wake up and his father finds him. So like, I can't imagine how that whole thing is going to really turn out. But I mean, the reaction that Rue gave at the end where she just goes, damn, I mean, that said it all. That said it all right there. It was such a crazy sequence the way it turned out. But I think it was the best way to really just ratchet up the tension for the second season. There was already a lot of animosity between these two characters, but I feel like it was kind of one-sided on Fesco's end, where like Nate was kind of just like shrugging it off. He's like, oh, I'll be fine. You know, people say things like this to me all the time. He didn't actually know that Fesco was going to do that to him. And the fact that he just got in there and like, again, just punched the shit out of this guy. I can't imagine how this is going to go moving forward. So yeah, just all in all, a lot of great stuff going on in this episode. Getting into Yes, definitely. Very good way to kick off the season. Now, getting into some of the technical stuff here, Sam Levinson's directing here was phenomenal. I thought he did such a great job of creating this very dark mood for the season. He already did that well in season one, but you can tell going into this, things just feel a lot more intense. Everything feels a lot more vital. It feels like everything is really on the line here. And I think he did a really good job of creating this mood where you could tell something was going to happen. By the end of this episode, something bad was going to happen. You didn't know what it was. And I thought overall he really did deliver on that front. What did you think of Levinson's directing here?
Yeah, like, Levinson's been doing a good job throughout this whole show, and he's continuing to do some crazy shit that's into it.
Yeah, definitely. And the writing, like we said, was just really great all around. I've seen some people complain. And obviously I can't speak for the rest of the season, but I've seen a lot of people say the season feels too Rue heavy and everyone else isn't in it enough. And I'm watching this episode and I'm like, what do you mean by that? Because almost everyone had something going on. Even Kat didn't have a lot, but we at least got to see something with her. I don't think there was a single character in this episode that didn't have something memorable. You know, even characters like Maddie, who is in a better place right now, still banging on the door, being like, I know you're taking a shit. Like, that's such a memorable scene. Like, obviously, I think every character had something interesting going on. So yeah, I think overall the writing was just very strong here. I loved the interactions we got, like I said, with Lexi and Fesco especially. I think that's going to be a really interesting dynamic going into this season. So I'm excited to see how that really does play out. But something we have to talk about, Henry, that I did not know until the episode concluded, this episode and the entire season was shot on film, which is amazing.
Oh, yeah.
How rare is that you watch a show like this that is completely shot on film in that way? I think it's so cool. You could
especially tell, nowadays.
Yeah, and here's the thing, I knew there was something different in terms of cinematography, because if you look at a season 1 episode, especially looking at the recap and like going into the season, it looks different. Like there's something different going on. Now it makes sense. Everything's shot on film, and I think it works really well. It's a lot more crisp. It's a lot, it has its own sort of like distinctive feel, and I really liked it a lot. It almost felt like a movie in that way, and I really liked what they did with the cinematography here. One of the best shots of the entire episode, I think you'll agree with me, is when Nate is coming out of that bathroom and he sees Jules, and how he's feeling towards Jules because he's enticed by her. He likes, sort of what he was engaged with her, and then you see him look at Fesco and how annoyed he is with him. Like there's a lot of history between those two characters, and I thought they did a really good job of covering that just in that one shot. That was a really just amazing shot to me, but also just the stuff we get with like Rue and Jules and like them looking at each other, and eventually when they do kiss in that moment, I mean, just a lot of great cinematography in this episode. And you could tell that like the budget was a lot bigger too. I think they definitely have a much bigger budget, and it definitely does show in that way. The score, I mean, has always been amazing in this show. I loved getting to hear just like the again. It was like a visit from an old friend. Like it was like I haven't heard this in a long time, and it was really cool to get to hear that again. So yeah, it was just that was just really great to see. I love what Labyrinth does when it comes to the score in the show, and the soundtrack was amazing too. That Look at Grandma song, I've been listening to that a lot since this first episode. So yeah, that's something. I mean, season 1, like I feel like they were always on point in terms of soundtrack as well, but season 2, I think they've even improved that, and I really do like what they're doing with the soundtrack here. This episode was also pretty long. It was over an hour, and I think it really flew by for me. It's probably one of the most well-paced episodes of Euphoria to date, and I really liked what they did with that. The other thing we have to mention, HBO Max literally crashed when this came out, which is amazing. Like I knew this show had a fan base. I did not know it had that big of a fan base to the point where your whole fucking app is going to crash. Like this is like the equivalent of like fucking Spider-Man No Way Home for HBO Max. Like this is crazy. I love that Euphoria is like their flagship show now. Like, now that Game of Thrones has been done for a while, obviously, this is now the show that like people are watching HBO for. This and like
2.5 million viewers.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think we're definitely going to get like the season 3 announcement like really soon, right? Like that's definitely going to happen. So yeah, I'm very happy to see
probably working on it right now.
What?
I said they're probably working on it right now.
Oh yeah, they got the script ready and everything. So yeah, I'm very happy to see that this show is very much thriving in terms of viewership. I feel like, at least for me, a lot of season 2s of HBO shows, like their viewership usually goes down like a lot. So it's really great to see that not be the case with this. And like, they're really just making gangbusters in terms of that. So that's really amazing. I love the fact that the show just has such a loyal fan base in that way. And just all around, I think this was a really strong premiere. I really think it did a good job of heightening the tension, really giving us an idea of what the season is going to be, showing a lot of these characters like Rue, like Cassie at their lowest points, and showing how they're sort of like descending into darkness in that way. But I also like a lot of the new elements we introduce here. The character of Elliot is very intriguing. I'm excited to see where that character does go. I don't really know how he's going to complicate things between Rue and Jules, but I think that's going to be very interesting to watch. The expansion we got on Fesco's character was incredible in this episode. He was very much the star of this episode for sure. Angus Cloud just killed it here, and I really loved what they ended up doing. With him in this episode. I think he by far is one of my favorite characters within the show right now. I really like the way things, escalated with the Cassie storyline. The Lexi and Fesco of it all was very surprising, and the way they wrap things up at the end. It's just the perfect way to kick off what I think is going to be a truly thrilling season of television. Oh, I'm going to show my background because I'm going to put the grade up. So I turn your camera off if you can. Yeah, I'm very excited to see how this does play out. I really love this premiere a lot. And I am going to give the season premiere Euphoria, season 2, episode 1, Trying to Get to Heaven Before They Close the Door, in A. You're gonna give your thoughts?
Yeah, it's same. It's a great freaking premiere. Like,
Yes.
I'm already hooked, and
Oh yeah.
can't wait to see where it goes.
Yes. Very excited for the rest of this season moving forward. I think overall this is going to be a really strong season of television. Now, before we do close things out here, Henry, I am going to give you a chance to, plug your socials, things like that. That's always something that is fun to do. So go right ahead.
All right. If you don't follow me already, that's my Twitter, Henry Ewing. My letterboxd is Henry Ewing.
Yes, where he will ask you what your Twitter is, just so you know.
Oh,
that
yeah.
is something he's going to do.
Yes.
Yes. So follow him over there, Letterboxd especially. Really great stuff going on over on Henry's Letterboxd. And you can find a bunch of great stuff there. A lot of shit posting that he does in my favor, sometimes to my chagrin as well. But you know what? It's always a lot of fun to explore the social medias on there. This was a lot of fun. I'm very excited to cover the rest of this season with you for sure. I'm very excited to see what is in store for this season moving forward. I think this is not even close to the peak of what this season is really going to be. Again, I think if this premiere is any indication, I think we are in for a hell of a ride, and I'm just very excited to see how it does end up playing out moving forward, but also equally as terrified to see how it plays out moving forward. But we'll just have to see how it all does end up turning out. But anyways, guys, that's really it for this review. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in our next video, and we will see you guys for that. Okay, bye. Oh, my God.